Motion to approve the consent agenda. Motion by Ms. Brill, second by Dr. Robinson. Any discussion? All in favor? All opposed? Motion carries 7-0. Mr. Superintendent, that'll take us to the first item on the agenda, which I guess is ours, and that's BRD 1. Is the HR department going to handle this? Is this how this is?
No, sir.
No?
The board just accepts it.
Board members are being handled the results of the superintendent's evaluation with the final evaluation category that he was rated as effective. Unless anybody has any comments, if you would approve that evaluation, I will, and authorize me to sign it, I will sign it and have the superintendent execute it also. Anybody want to speak? Please put your hand. Ms. McQuinn.
I just want to, are we speaking to the recommendation right now?
Yes, ma'am. We have the evaluation in front of us, so yes. Recommend the board accept and approve the superintendent's annual evaluation. So we have a motion to that effect by Ms. Whitfield, seconded by Vice Chairman Shaw. Under discussion, Ms. McQuinn, go ahead.
Thank you. I have not written any comments on the copies that my fellow board members have in front of them. I met with Dr. Fenoy today for a one-on-one meeting, and he is aware of the scores that I gave him, and also the positives and the opportunities for growth that we talked about. I told Dr. Fenoy that I was going to quote him. Sometime during the beginning of this pandemic, he had said, "In the midst of every crisis lies great opportunity." And I am simply asking that as staff is working on a new strategic plan, I can't quite remember when ours is up, 21, I think, but that we talked about this at the beginning. What have we learned? What best practices have we developed since the pandemic that we're going to promote innovative ways of providing high-quality instruction for all students? And we will get to that talk about equity. I just know we will at some point. And then how have we responded as a school system to be even more responsive to the needs of our students, our staff, and our community? Thank you.
Any other speakers? Ms. Brill?
Thank you. And so, I combed over the metrics, and I also, kept my thoughts focused on the period ending the end of June. Surely, and if the evaluation was to today, there were certain areas that I might have had more concerns, but I will tell you that I did speak to Dr. Fenoy. I feel very confident that he takes our comments very, very seriously. But I do want to say to my colleagues, if we expect Dr. Fenoy to be able to perform, we have to allow him to make changes to his staff that he deems that necessary. We cannot, there was a speaker that said we can't micromanage him. And so I ask my colleagues on this board to allow our superintendent to do his job, to meet with us, to discuss our concerns, and I look forward to us being able to let him do what he feels needs to be done. Thank you.
Mrs. Andrews?
Thank you. I spent a few minutes with Dr. Fenoy on yesterday, but I'm just really concerned. I'm certainly not interested in micromanaging Dr. Fenoy. That's not what I'm here for. But as I sit here and look at what we're dealing with tonight, this is due to not resolving conflicts and having issues to escalate. This is the second year in a row that I've had that conversation with Dr. Fenoy after his first evaluation, and this evaluation, I'm talking about the same thing, being proactive, discussing and resolving issues before they escalate. Tonight, we're involved in a situation that has escalated. That just cannot be. That's not micromanaging. We want him to do his job so that we don't sit in situations as we're sitting in right now. And yes, I know that Dr. Fenoy said we could not evaluate him after June 30th, but I see the problems that's existing right now with us started before June 30th. And if we had been working on the front end of situations back in March and April, when the pandemic started, when we got into distance learning, I talked to Mr. Tierney. I know he hates to hear me call his name, as I talked to Dr. Fenoy, and I continually press on them to take the leadership, get the work done so that we won't be in these kinds of places. And I'm hoping that as we move forward, that I won't be saying this another year, that we're still in this same boat. And as you looked at his evaluation, and I'm sure he's looked at it, some of these same issues we talked about a year ago.
Any other comments? We'll take a vote. All in favor of the evaluation? Opposed? Motion carries 7-0. Superintendent, I think on COM 1, Mrs. Andrews wanted to read that one, but if you want to go ahead and read your recommendation.
You want me to read
Mr.
it?
Barbieri, may I?
Dr. Robinson?
I'm afraid I'm a little bit late at the draw here. So I think the appropriate thing, since we just voted on that, is the motion to reconsider, because I would like to amend the vote we just took. So I would like to offer a motion to reconsider accepting his evaluation, please.
We have a motion by Dr. Robinson to reconsider, seconded by,
I couldn't hear what she said.
I didn't realize she wanted to speak, so we voted and she didn't have a chance to speak, so she's made a motion to reconsider so we can reopen it so that she can speak. It was seconded by Ms. McQuinn. Go ahead, Dr. Robinson.
Thank you. So I'm going to keep my comments to a minimum here, but because I think the document would speak for itself, I can just tell you that I am sad and very much disappointed about a number of things. But when I compared my evaluation from last year to this year, I realized that some things have not changed. They have not gotten worse. I mean, they have gotten worse. And so, and part of it has, in my opinion, has to do with leadership and taking responsibility as the CEO. I don't like the games that I see getting played. I would like for us to focus on our mission statement and work on behalf of children. The motion that I want to offer is to ask that Dr. Fenoy bring us back within the next 30 days, a 90-day plan to address all the issues that the board has outlined in his evaluation.
General Counsel, we have a motion on the floor. Remind me of Robert's rules, what we do. We have a second motion being made by Dr. Robinson in the middle of a motion that's already there.
Yes, I'm going to call on Attorney Bruce Harris to chime in on this one.
Okay. Good night, or good evening, what should I say? On the motion to reconsider, I heard a motion, the second, but I didn't hear a vote.
We haven't voted on it yet, Mr. Harris. We're in
Okay.
discussion.
Okay, then the motion to reconsider, Dr. Robinson.
Oh, you know what, Mr. Harris? Dr. Robinson was correct just now. I just realized what she said. We had a motion and a second by Dr. Robinson. We didn't have a vote on that yet. All right. So all in
Yes,
favor?
that was my point.
Okay. All those in favor of Dr. Robinson's motion to reconsider? Opposed? Motion carries. Dr.
Okay.
Robinson. Now Dr. Robinson wants to make us another motion at this point. Yes?
Right, so we have the motion to accept the superintendent's evaluation is what's before us, correct? That's what is before us again, correct? So I would like to amend that to ask that the board direct the superintendent to bring us back within the next 30 days a plan for the next 90 days to a corrective action plan to show how these issues, he was going to correct these issues that have been noted time and time again. Him address it. Because I'm sorry, we hold the CEOs accountable, not everybody underneath them.
We have a second on Dr. Robinson's motion. Seconded by Mrs. Anders. Discussion on Dr. Robinson's motion. Ms. McQuinn.
Yes, if you look at the individual scores from board members, I don't think we're at all in consensus about what exactly the 90-day plan would look like. I'm, for one, not ready to go there yet. I'd rather he spend his time doing the work that we have to get done rather than a plan to improve his evaluation.
Dr. Robinson.
Thank you. Let me clarify. It's not a plan to improve his evaluation. It's a plan to improve the work getting done that has been reflected in the evaluation. So it's about the work. It really is about the work and about the work for children.
One follow-up, please. Thank you. So again, if you look at the individual scores, they are very skewed. I hate to say this, to the left and to the right, but got to have a little levity here tonight. Anyway, so we're not, I'm kind of in the middle. We're way high, we're way low. So I don't know that we are in agreement on what he needs to work on.
Mrs. Sanders.
Yeah, I really think we really have to look at this because we've had some serious trouble with our superintendent and with the leadership here, and I tried to reflect that in my evaluation, and I certainly have never tried to micromanage Dr. Fenoy. But we're sitting through something right now that should have been handled. When I look at the kinds of things that I know need to be done, it starts with the top. It really does. He's got to be able to lead. He's got to be able to do those pieces of the puzzle that gets the rest of his team involved so that we can be where we need to be as it relates to student achievement. We're in a big time right now with testing. The state of Florida says they're not giving us a waiver. So right now, academic achievement is something that's on the line right now. And I do believe that the superintendent has staff, excellent people who do a lot of good work. When I ask him and when I'm looking for him to lead, I'm very disappointed that I don't see that leadership. And I was really appalled that the superintendent would tell me that I could not write down something on my evaluation after June 30th. That was just very disrespectful to me as a board member. I know that he should have been working in a different way early on, and if he had, we wouldn't have had the problems, and we would not be having the problems that we're having right now as it relates to the school district. And if this board doesn't take ownership, even though these scores may be different from different people, we're going to be back here again if we don't take a look at ourselves and our leader here to try to help him to get where he needs to go. Thank you.
Mrs. Whitfield, then Ms. Brill.
Thank you. I'm a little concerned about the idea of giving Dr. Fenoy more work. This past 6 months, I went across and I made sure to give him an effective rating. I don't think it was the most stellar job done by any human, but I really think in the given circumstances, he's done the best job he can. And I really think that asking for additional work at this juncture is just a bad use of our superintendent's time. I get the idea of having to respond to the criticisms, and I have written some things in there that I haven't had a chance to speak with him about yet, and I plan on doing that at our meeting next week so we can have a conversation about some of the things that I think that really need to be done. But as far as this district right now, I really just don't think it's a good use of his time. It's a very stressful job to be superintendent in this country right now. It is more stressful than I think our jobs, and our jobs are hard. I think it's more stressful than most positions in the world at this moment. And I think we have to give him some grace. I really think that that's what I want to take away from this moment, is a little bit of grace for us, for him, for everything that's happened. Thank you.
Ms. Brill, then Mrs. Andrews.
Thank you. So first of all, I do want to recognize there are some things that have really been fantastic this past year. For example, getting those computers into the hands of our students. That was because of business relationships. The one thing I will say is Dr. Fenoy has made great strides in being out in the community with, trying to get the resources for us. Everybody has weaknesses, obviously. Dr. Fenoy and I have spoken about it. Communication has been abominable, we've had a lot of issues over the summer, but I focused on the fiscal year. And I have to tell you that I think that the superintendent, I told him last year he needs to be more visible in the schools. Well, he took it to heart. I know he has been. He has been more visible in the schools. So I guess I feel I have the kind of relationship that I'm able to speak to him about what I see. I think it's incumbent upon all of us for the issues that we find that we're not happy with to speak to the superintendent and follow up with him. I don't know that I really feel the need. I agree with Mrs. Whitfield. I don't think we need a formal plan. I think we're in a very unprecedented, and I know people are tired of hearing that, but a very unprecedented era. And face it, we've opened our schools after the fiscal year. We haven't had to shut any down. We haven't had to shut down any classrooms. Do we need to do better with the teachers and remote learning and the principals? Absolutely. But you know what? No one's ever done this before. So you know what? I feel I have to give Dr. Fenoy a big pass. Last year, I gave him the lowest evaluation. And ironically, this year, I gave him the highest evaluation, because we are surfing through a time like no other. But I think it's incumbent upon us as board members to work with the superintendent to make sure that the things that we see as weaknesses get addressed. Have some workshops here on things that are more global, like education, infusing the Hispanic, African American, the Holocaust education. We can do those things here, but I don't believe that we need to have a formal plan.
Mrs. Andrews.
He is a relatively new superintendent, and when you're new, sometimes you do need some help. It's easy for us to sit here as board members. We're not here every single day, but I just know that I'm very involved in my district and across the county, and I hear voices of a lot of people talking to me about our superintendent not being able to get the job done. And I don't know why that happens with him after I tell him certain kinds of things that I'm looking for high-level leadership, communications, collaboration, and being involved and doing the things that he needs to be doing. I can't make him do anything. But as a new person, just like a new teacher, after 3 years, you kind of have it in line, you get some support and assistance. And that's what that plan that Dr. Robinson is talking about. You put some things down, you can begin to start working on them. It doesn't mean that you're in trouble, but you won't learn to get better if you don't acknowledge you have some issues and begin to work on them to improve. And that's what I'm talking about, because other people are talking about what we're talking about tonight from different angles. Maybe, yes, he's been with the business community, but guess what? I'm looking at the parents who call me each and every day. I'm looking at people out, stakeholders that I deal with every single day. They're asking me, how can I come in and help Dr. Fenoy? I had a gentleman just talk to me yesterday and said that the teachers and the schools, they need a lot of help because it's real critical there. The children need a lot of help, and at the head, the superintendent may not know what to do. Ms. Andrews, would you give him my name so I can come in and help? The people are talking about the need to help our superintendent. He may not see it, but others see it. They're talking about it. And this is why I had to write it, the truth, in my evaluation, because he really does need some help. and we need to give it to him. I don't want this place to break down, and I didn't speak out to say that I know we need some help at the top. He is the CEO. We pay him great money, but I know he's new, and I'm willing to work with him to see if he can turn it around. I know a lot of districts had to go through a lot during this pandemic, and I did work with a lot of districts because of the Council of Great City Schools, but some of our stuff that we're dealing with here in Palm Beach County are unforced errors and problems that we didn't get straight on the front end, and that's why we're dealing with them on the back end. And I talk about it all the time with Ed Tierney, the Chief of Staff, every week, and Dr. Fenoy knows it. And if we don't get this straightened out, we're going to be talking about this again.
Dr. Robinson.
Thank you. So maybe I should call this the Room for Improvement Plan, because this is the problem. He is capable of rising higher. And we as a collective leadership team are able to do better. But we need to. And as the superintendent, the CEO, you will see in my evaluation, I talk about leadership, inspirational leadership, and it is time for that, right? And so, but I said similar things a year ago. Am I going to have to say similar things next year? Like, that's what I'm trying to avoid, because while we are doing whatever we're doing, I get it's a pandemic and none of us have done this before. But it's in times of crisis that true leaders stand up, right? History will tell us that. And I'm saying it is time for Dr. Fenoy to stand up and lean into his greatness. And I need to see that soon, because guess what? While we pity-patting around, children are losing. Children are losing. We're in distance learning. We know who's in distance learning. I had today, Dr. Fenoy told me about a plan for post-COVID slide, okay? But we need, as a leadership team, to focus on where we are trying to go instead of this superficial, pity-pat, media profile exercise, okay? I'm ready to focus on children. Now, if I didn't think Dr. Fenoy had the ability to stand up and lead, I would have been making a different motion, okay? So let's be clear about that, right? But we are losing children. We have teachers leaving because they feel that we have failed them, right? It is time to lead. And Dr. Fenoy, you are the CEO of this school district, and I expect you to lead with the focus on the children. I mean, and my motion stands, but I will call it a Room for Improvement Plan. And that's fine. It's a motion on the table. You call the question.
I want to speak on this. My suggestion is, I was brutally frank with Dr. Fenoy in my evaluation. All of us were. He certainly has the message of what we find as leadership deficiencies. I see no reason to make him come up with a written plan. I think that each of us should take the opportunity to sit with him now and ask him how he's going to cure the deficiencies that each of us have seen here. If you are not all satisfied with what he says, then you can bring up a motion later to do something different. But I just don't. He understands his problems. He understands what we think his issues are. Certainly, he's a grown man. He's got the background to figure out what he needs to do to fix that, I hope. And I think we should just take the opportunity to meet with him instead of requiring him to come up with a written plan that's going to cover so many different things that each of us have issues with. I mean, the plan is going to have to be 600 pages long if he covers everything that each one of us have issues with. I just think that's a lot of work that's not going to bring us the results we want. I think we'd be better off to go over our evaluations with him and ask him how he's going to take care of the issues in each one of our evaluations and leave it at that. So we'll go ahead and take a vote on it at this point and see where we are. All those in favor of Dr. Fenoy coming up with this plan that Dr. Robinson would like him to come up with on the motion, please say yes or put up your hand. Those against? The motion fails 5-2. Carol brought it to my attention that there's a young man back here that I missed because his name wasn't on the list. So, Mr. Creary, I'm very sorry. If you want to come up to the microphone and tell us what you'd like us to hear tonight.
Mr. Barbieri.
Mr. Barbieri.
Thank you.
Okay, we got to vote on the main motion. Mr. Creary, hold on for one second.
1 second.
All right, all those in favor of the main motion to accept, opposed? Is that a 7-0? Yes, 7-0. Mr. Creary, go ahead.
Good night. I stand before you today to give a request, an alleviation of my frustrations. My anxiety is boundless, but the necessity of a bold initiative grows more immediate with each passing day as tensions rise from the upcoming election. Each of us in this very room has a different background, a history that defines and marks us to the very last letters of our names. Relatability, however, is a unifier that clusters those very names to create a shared experience that we're able to live under. The civil rights protests of this summer, in contrast, reminded us of the unique isolation of American society to which we are all subjected to. My skin is my stamp. My accent is my marker. Many of the things that define me as a Black immigrant are things I cannot control and are regularly discriminated against. The admittance of the prevalence of this discrimination towards me and other people of color remains combated, remains taboo to the point that it incites discomfort to speak of them. Discomfort in discrimination confronts us all, but many questions remain elusive. What impact will this have on our future? And is racism mutually exclusive to a political party? Our discomfort and questions have become tumultuous as we become more polarized. Efforts to relieve such changes are sidetracked due to our dependency on time to pass and resolve our problems. It's time that we created our own initiative. Mine started from seeing student-made posts within this very district mocking the death of an unarmed Black man gasping for air at the hands of police over a counterfeit $20 bill. The rhetoric and words that plastered these hateful posts disturbed me to the point of taking action. The Atlantic High School Black Student Union is my result. I believe that the students and staff of our district, no matter their political beliefs or alignments, should have an unbiased forum that represents all participants equally, a place where liberals and conservatives of all types can feel safe to discuss current events. Discussions about social issues should no longer be reserved to specific races or labeled as unapproachable topics. As students, our generation needs to assimilate measures of evaluation in order to develop a visceral perspective, creating a group of avid stewards and activists as a result. To achieve this and a greater sense of equality is my motivation. What will motivate you? Thank you for your time.
Thank you, and I'm sorry we kept you so long.
Good job.
Superintendent, that'll take us back to the new business agenda, COM 1.
Yes, Madam, I recommend the board proclaim October 2020 as LGBTQ plus History Month.
Motion by Ms. Brill, seconded by Mrs. Andrews. Mrs. Andrews, I believe you wanted to read that proclamation?
Yes, I did. Thank you. Proclamation LGBTQ plus History Month, October 2020. Whereas lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, and questioning LGBTQ plus Americans have made and continue to make great and lasting contributions that continue to strengthen the fabric of American society. And whereas LGBTQ plus History Month reminds both the LGBTQ plus and wider communities of important roles LGBTQ plus people have taken in creating the social, legal, and political worlds we live in today. And whereas this month, as we recognize the immeasurable contributions of LGBTQ plus Americans, we renew our commitment to the struggle for equity and equal rights for LGBTQ plus students and staff. And whereas the School District of Palm Beach County is committed to the academic success of all youth and to removing barriers to that end, and we believe that LGBTQ plus youth should feel safe to learn without the fear of harassment or discrimination. And whereas LGBTQ plus educators, students, and families should be supported to live an affirmative life with dignity and respect. And whereas the LGBTQ plus community cuts across every demographic of race, gender, economic status, ethnicity, religion, and region. And whereas the School District of Palm Beach County has taken appropriate measures to address LGBTQ plus bullying, harassment, and educational equity in general through non-discrimination policy 5.001, anti-bullying policy 5.002, and equity policy 1.041. And whereas community-based organizations and community leaders have partnered with the School District of Palm Beach County to educate, support, and provide resources to promote safe learning environments for all students and families. And whereas the School District of Palm Beach County appreciates and recognizes the importance of LGBTQ plus History Month as an effective means of educating and calling to action the citizens of Palm Beach County to work together to promote equal protection of all Palm Beach County students and staff, regardless of sexual orientation, gender identity, or gender expression. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the superintendent and the school board of Palm Beach County do hereby proclaim October 2020 as LGBTQ plus History Month, done this 21st day of October 2020 in West Palm Beach, Florida. Frank A. Barbieri, Jr., Esquire, Board Chair, Dr. Donald E. Fenoy, II, Superintendent.
Is there any discussion on this motion? All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries 7-0. Thank you, Mrs. Andrews. Mr. Superintendent, COM2.
Yes, sir. COM2. I recommend the board proclaim October 20th as National Bullying Prevention and Awareness Month.
Motion by Dr. Robinson, seconded by Mrs. Whitfield. Discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries 7-0. COM3, Mr. Superintendent.
COM3, I recommend the board proclaim November 9 through 13, 2020 as National School Psychology Week.
Motion by Dr. Robinson, seconded by Mrs. Andrews. Any discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries 7-0. LD1, Mr. Superintendent.
Yes, sir. LD1, I recommend the board approve the settlement in the matter of the U.S. Department of Justice independent investigation and authorize the superintendent, board chair, and the general counsel to sign all necessary documents.
Motion by Mrs. Andrews, seconded by Mrs. Whitfield. Mrs. Andrews, I believe
Yes.
you pulled that.
Yes, I pulled this, and through the chairman to the superintendent. As you heard, we have a speaker tonight asking questions about the settlement agreement. I represent you on the Hispanic Education Coalition Committee for the School District of Palm Beach County. And I know in reading this settlement agreement, I saw it on posted. It was posted a little late. I know they were trying to get this information a little earlier, but I think it behooves us, the school board, to reach out to the Hispanic Education Committee and talk with them about what this settlement is all about and solicit their help, because it's not just about the $190,000 that the district is going to have to pay, but it's about educating the community and making sure that we can have them help us to get better and making sure that we don't leave any applicants behind through the process. And they're the ones out in the community. So I'm asking the superintendent to ask the Human Resources Department, maybe legal, to get with HEC and see if you could go through the settlement agreement and find out how they can help us so that we can do a better job here with the School District of Palm Beach County to help the people of our community that we have had some issues with as it related to the department, the United States Department of Justice, coming in here telling us that we have to do a better job in working with our own population right here in Palm Beach County, our Hispanic people right here in the community, and others that have been denied access for employment.
Yes, ma'am. So the training has already been developed, and I'll be glad to direct staff to reach out to HEC to go over everything that the legal team and HR have done in reference to this. Yes, ma'am, it's done.
Mr. Superintendent, I'd like to ask that you allow the school board's general counsel to work with the HR division to make sure that all of these issues are cleared up and that there's a plan in place to make sure that there's no recurrence, and that the general counsel feels that at that point feels that everything is being done properly so that we don't have a reoccurrence.
Yes, the general counsel's office will do that and is already in the process of working with HR on the training, and has actually prepared an extensive training, some extensive training materials on this.
Okay. All right. Go ahead, Ms. Brill.
Beyond the trainings, just want to ask council, if things arise where you see we need policy changes, if there's anything in our policy that's lacking, I would greatly appreciate you bringing it back. I think we need to review it and adjust the policy accordingly.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
All right. If there's no further discussion, we'll take a vote. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries 7-0. P2.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman, I recommend the board approve the personal addendum as submitted.
Motion by Vice Chairman Shaw, second by Dr. Robinson. Any discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries 7-0. All right, so the next item on the agenda would be BRD2, but we have some recorded non-agenda speakers that I didn't call on at that point because we had already taken a half an hour, which is our board policy for non-agenda speakers in the middle of a meeting. So I'll ask the IT department to play the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5